Podcast Answer Man, episode number 342.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference.
This is GSPN.TV.
Join the community.
Hey, this is Chris Brogan from chrisbrogan.com, and you're listening to the Podcast Answer Man.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft, and this, my friends, is the podcast devoted to taking your message, your business, and your life to the next level. It doesn't matter if you're brand new to this online world we live in, putting your message out there, or if you've been doing this for many years. There's something we can all do to take everything we do in life to the next level. That's right, my friends, and this week's episode is going to be a great one, and I know that because my wonderful friend and social media correspondent, Eric J. Fisher, is here on this call with me right now, and we've already pre-recorded 32 minutes of this episode. Eric, how's it going, my friend?
It's going great, and I can't wait to re-listen to what we just recorded.
Yeah, so we recorded this yesterday, about 24 hours ago, and what you're about ready to hear is a conversation that Eric Fisher and I had with our mutual friend, Scott Stratten. Scott's over there at unmarketing.com, and he was also probably the single greatest keynote that New Media Expo has ever had, outside of my great friend Leo Laporte doing all the podcasting stuff. But when it comes to just the overall approach to how we use social media, Scott Stratten's keynote at New Media Expo 2014 was out of this world. Wouldn't you agree, Eric?
I would agree, especially because we were sitting there on Sunday morning, and it was like he was holding church.
It was. And we were the crowd.
Everybody was in the crowd yelling amen.
And we were the choir. We were
Yes.
the choir, and we were enjoying it.
Yes.
So absolutely, I loved that keynote, and of course, we've had some great conversations since then on Twitter. And I think it was Scott that was it in Twitter that Scott invited himself to come crash this party.
He did actually. It was on Facebook, but yeah, it was his post. I think you talked.
Oh.
You mentioned it on there, and then it was his post about his Tweetbot filters. You talked about it and then said, "Hey, Eric, you want to talk about this?" And then he was like, "I'll crash that.
I'll crash that party. Come on over." And so that's what prompted today's episode. By the way, this is the third episode within, I think, the last 5 or 6 episodes of Podcast Answer Man where we're going to be talking about Twitter. And if that is not appealing to you, we completely understand. And I invite you to, well, number one, I encourage you to just stick around and listen to at least the Scott Stratten part of this episode, because it at least gives you a different perspective outside of that. And then following the Scott Stratten part, Eric and I are going to give 5 tips for a relational approach to Twitter. So we've been talking about how we desire to use Twitter with a relational focus. And a lot of people are like, I just don't understand how you do that when Twitter's already kind of too far gone. It's all, 5 tips to this and 5 this and 7 of this and 10 of those and links to everything. And it's all advertising and it's all automated. And it's just, Twitter even says they're a news and information network now. I've tried to use Twitter and it just doesn't work. How can I possibly use Twitter in a relational way? Eric and I are going to share 5 tips for doing that after the conversation. But if that's not of interest to you, I totally get it. We'll catch up with you next week. But we're going to go ahead and jump first into the conversation that we recorded yesterday with Scott, and then we'll be right here on this episode with those 5 strategies/tips to help you out. Scott, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, it's my honor to be on this show, so don't ever doubt that.
Hey, congratulations, by the way, on your 2 top-ranked podcasts that are just absolutely crushing it in the iTunes store. Give a plug real quick for your 2 shows.
The Unpodcast, that's the main one. That's the everything you wanted to hear and not hear about business. And then the Vegas 30, which is Vegas for people over 30, too old to stand in line and too young to play bingo. So that's the two of them, and we have a blast doing both.
Excellent. And both of those are available in iTunes. I encourage you guys to go check them out. Definitely subscribe. Scott, I first learned about you several years ago through your book, Unmarketing. I believe I was just walking through Barnes & Noble, and it happened to be, I think, on an end cap at the time.
Yep.
And it was in a section of books that I regularly check out, business and personal development. And it seemed very interesting. I didn't purchase it at the time, but hey, I'm authentic and transparent here. But the reality is I did pick it up and I skimmed through it, and it's like, man, this is going on my eventual read list. And so I took a picture of it and I'm like added it to a list of books that I'll eventually get to.
The funny thing is, I get people who will tweet me in store, and they're saying, "Hey, I'm reading your book in the store. It's great." I'm like, "Don't read it in the store.
Buy it and take it home.
You're not at the Barnes and Noble library. Like, buy the thing." Well, I don't know. It's expensive. It's $17. Trust me. You'll be okay.
Well,
so I appreciate you taking a loan out of Barnes and Noble.
Well, I did. I previewed the book, but you know what the book did for me though is it definitely introduced me to you, and I started looking for you online, and that's when I first became familiar with you and your message. And of course, being in the online world, some of us share a lot of same, communities online, and right. I heard a lot of people talking about you and the buzz around your book and message and stuff like that. So that it was your book that introduced me to you, and it introduced me to the idea and this fact that you are very keen on building relationships and not necessarily all about focused on ROI and strategies for automating people into a sales funnel. Right. Am I accurate in saying that?
Yeah, I think I don't have a problem with automation in certain aspects of business. I have a newsletter. I send them a welcome message. I talk to them that way, and it's automated. So I'm a fan of automation when it's appropriate. Yeah. And I'm a fan of engagement in an authentic way where that is called for. It's just not marketing like a jerk. That's really what unmarketing comes down to, and not interrupting people all day.
Cool. Well, folks that are listening know that Eric and I have been talking about trying to win Twitter back. We felt that it lost its human touch, especially with Twitter making that official announcement actually it wasn't an official announcement. It was a Twitter exec, I think about a year and a half, 2 years ago, let it slip in conversation in response to a press question, that Twitter is an information network. But recently they put out a video for the very first time explaining what Twitter is. And they very much said, we're an information network. We're kind of like, the next, we're like the newspaper of today. Right. And we talked about how sad we were to hear that. And of course, also even more saddened by the fact that it's become a reality. And that's been a topic of conversation for us recently. And talk about real quick, Scott, what is Twitter to you and what do you want it to be?
Well, I think what Twitter is to me right now was not what it was, like you said, in the old days. For me, the old days was 2008, 2009, and I semi-famously jumped on and lived on Twitter for 30 days, and I tweeted 7,000 times, and that's really where I started. I built my platform, yep. And to where it is today, where it's everybody talking and nobody listening. And I want it to be, it's the only place that we have real-time conversation going on a kind of a mass level, and where we can select whose conversations we want to listen to and jump into. And for us geeks, social media, when it exploded, us geeks were sitting around saying, we've been doing this for 15 years already. We've been doing message boards. We've been doing IRC. We've been doing chat. So this is nothing new. The problem is the chat has changed. And it's no longer about, let's log in, let's see who I'm following, who's online right now. It's like, well, we need a presence there. So we just got to push stuff there and let our customers or our audience or our followers, they can talk to each other. But I just don't have time. And it's real hypocritical of all of us, including myself.
Absolutely.
Scott, when you did your keynote Cliff and I, and you started basically saying those things out loud in front of a large crowd. Cliff and I, we digitally high-fived saying, look, he's saying it. Somebody, it was that Jerry Maguire moment. Look, finally, somebody's saying it, And
I think I saw Cliff walk out with the goldfish in the bag after that.
Yeah, there you go. The fish is coming with me. And you said something. You said scheduling is the worst thing to happen to social media for me. Automation is the worst thing to happen to social media.
It is.
And that just resonates with me. Sure.
I've been saying that. I've been saying scheduling and automation is the devil, is really the kryptonite to Twitter. And I've been saying that since we've had the first ability to either cross sync updates, a Facebook post going into Twitter, or schedule tweets. And I've been having, and it's really sad, but I've been having the same argument, or some call it a debate, with people for years about this. And they say now, the argument now is, well, Scott, I schedule tweets because of whatever reason, but if somebody replies to me, I get a notification in my email that I get a reply, so I can still engage and not be there. And to me, that's and it's funny calling social media selfish, but that's the most selfish thing we can do, because here's the problem, is that you're not giving to the conversation infrastructure of Twitter, meaning you're not logging in on Twitter and seeing what the people you follow are saying, and so you can talk to them. You're only popping in directly. It's like answering the phone when somebody tweets at you, and then you're leaving. So you're like, I don't have time for the inherent conversation going on. I do have time if you just say my name. We're like dogs. Like our ears will perk up if somebody says Scott. I'll be like, yeah, I'll answer you. And what I said on stage too is I sit there and preach, you shouldn't schedule, you shouldn't do this, but I'm one of the worst people to do just the app mention listen. For me to keep up, I guess you could say, is I look at my app mentions and I stopped looking at the general tweets or at my lists because I only had time. I'm throwing air quotes up in the air for that one. Mm-hmm. That I'm looking at it and saying I'm one of the worst culprits. So I've been doing for the past 6 months trying to go back and every day check in on at least a list or two that I'm following to give back to that, to say, hey, it's the best way we can high five each other. It's the best way we can say I'm interested in you is Twitter, because it's become that automation. I always say, if you schedule, it's like sending a mannequin to a networking event. You're there, but you're just not there. And what you're telling people is, I don't have time for you, but obviously you have time for my content. So please absorb it and listen to it. And that's not how Twitter, if I join Twitter, I'm telling you guys, if I join Twitter right now as a new user today, I would last not even a day. And I would be gone and I would never use it again.
Absolutely. In fact, there's been a conversation that's been happening in the Podcasting A to Z alumni Facebook group. And I know that you're a part of that as well, but probably not maybe aware of all the conversation that's happening there. But
I'm not in the Facebook group of that. Why am I not in that Facebook group? I need to change that. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, we'll make sure that happens because you're certainly eligible.
I'm a proud alumni of the course.
All right. So I want to read to you something that one of the alumni members had posted there. He says, I'd like to share a lesson I learned this past week. I recently went through and scrubbed my Twitter follow list and left only those with a personal connection or those that I'm really interested in, my gurus, I guess you could say. I have a very, very modest number of followers. So I was surprised to hear from a handful of people asking, why did you unfollow me? I really didn't expect this, so I engaged them. Here's what I gleaned. In essence, when I follow them after they follow me, in a small way, I'm saying, I see you. I recognize you. You're a part of what I'm doing. You have value. They were honored, in quotes, that I followed them. Imagine that, honored. In turn, they were disappointed and felt unappreciated when I actively unfollowed them. Those that I unfollowed were not all spammers or fakes. Yes, some linked a lot about their podcast, blog, or program, but isn't that to be expected? I do it. In fact, some that I unfollowed retweeted my tweets, favorited my posts, and mentioned my work. However, I unfollowed them because I did not have a personal connection with them, and they were not one of my gurus, in quotes. Taking a step back, I get it. My follow recognized them as significant, even if only in some small way. I've since refollowed many. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I shared a lot of thoughts on this, Scott, I'd love to hear your initial thoughts, and I'm bracing myself for you to actually have a different response than me.
Well, I have my biggest regret on Twitter, and this is somebody now I've tweeted over 100,000 times. I have over 165, I think, thousand followers. My biggest regret on Twitter was using a third-party program to auto-follow back anybody who followed me. And that's why I follow right now 35,000 people.
35,291.
Thank you. Exactly. Where the problem with that, I thought it was a courtesy. I thought it was nice. I thought I was doing exactly, and the reason why I stopped was exactly what you just read, which was people were touched, and they would DM me, and they would send a message saying, "Wow, thank you so much for following me back." And I realized if my whole world is about authenticity and transparency and marketing, and I'm auto-following back, I didn't have the heart to write back and say, I didn't follow you back. It was automated. And I think it's actually I think it's actually a disservice to people, because when you unfollow them, now mind you, how people know somebody unfollowed them or unfriended them is another discussion and a whole nother episode, where people subscribe to things where they get emails telling them how many people unfollow them or unfriend them in the list of them, which I think it's sadistic to me. But I for me, when it comes to following and following back, is you need to follow within your own interest. So it is who I'm interested in. It's who I will find interesting. And I couldn't keep up with listen to me, I'm the humble brag, right? But I couldn't keep up with the number of notifications I was getting of who was following me, so I couldn't take a look and see who would be good and who would not be. But we can't follow a certain number of people, right? There's all these studies all over the place, how many people you can connect with and actually have an authentic connection and follow. And I know my number isn't 35,000, right? And I have a hidden list of about 75 people called my awesome sauce list. I can follow that really well, but I have to cull that and I have to focus. And if you don't have focus or you don't have that connection or interest in people, you will lose all interest in the platform. So that's my opinion on the following side of things for sure.
I love that.
Have you ever considered doing any kind of an batch unfollow of just people that aren't?
Well, yeah, and I could because I could do everybody and just follow my list and go refollow those people. I don't have the heart. I'm being perfectly honest with you guys. I don't have the heart to drop everybody. I think it's kind of a jerk move, when you drop everybody. But on the other side of it, it's a jerk move to follow them and not actually follow them. I'm in this squeeze here where I'm not listening to people I'm following, but I don't want to do the dump, right? Because when you see somebody who has 160,000 followers and they follow 80, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the.
Thanks a lot, Scott. So I definitely took jerk move number 2.
Yeah.
And I did the massive unfollow. Of course, I don't have 163,383 people that follow me.
Right.
But
that's what I should do. Really, if you want to be honest, if we all want to be honest and transparent, since Twitter shows the numbers, I should be dumping that number. And I should be doing exactly what you do, because that is true.
That is exactly what I was getting ready to say. It's about being authentic and telling people what you're really doing. And for me, that's what it was. And when I got to right now, I'm at 11,284 people who follow me, which, I think that's amazing, and I'm extremely honored by it. And I believe it's a huge responsibility to have that many people follow what you have to say. And I think that plays into a lot of this stuff. But here's the reality is when I actually hit about 4,000, 5,000 people, at that time I was following approximately the same number of people. And this is exactly, you mentioned one thing, and Twitter actually can be a very distracting and frustrating experience when you follow that many people, simply by the amount of direct messages you get. Yes. And specifically the direct messages that come from people whose passwords are easily socially hijacked, and you just get inundated by all this crud. And having a direct message is actually it is worthless. It means nothing because it is not an inbox that can be kept up with.
Right, exactly. And I had this conversation with Chris Brogan a long time ago, because when I stopped auto following back, he kept doing it. And I said, man, I don't know how you keep up with this. Just the automated DMs. This was before we were getting hit with the phishing, and the virus type of stuff. It was just automated DMs. And I said, man, I don't know how you do it. He's like, I think it's nice to follow them back. And then he eventually dumped everybody as well. You just on the fact you're just talking about DM volume alone. So that was my whole thing was just, but then I had an issue of okay, the people who I still want to follow do things I don't like.
Yep.
Like they schedule or they auto post or they link. So I had to find a way of how do I keep following people I like, but not see the Facebook sync or the Instagram photo or the Foursquare check-in type of stuff that I didn't really want to see. And that's where I started, figuring out tools within the platforms to mute certain apps and things. And it's certainly Twitter's gotten a heck of a lot better in the past 30 days for me, for sure.
I've noticed that. And of course, that's about how long, 30, 60 days, something like that Eric and I have been talking about winning Twitter back to what we first fell in love with the service. And all three of us have one thing in common. I'm almost positive of this, but all three of us, when we are engaging with Twitter, almost all the time, we are engaging with Twitter through Tweetbot. Is that correct?
Yes.
Eric, still true for you?
Totally true.
So, and by the way, Tweetbot has a desktop app for the Mac. I believe it's still available. I know that Twitter only allows them so many tokens. But there's Tweetbot for iOS, and I don't think it's for the Android, is it?
No. I don't think so.
When I mentioned Tweetbot last week, the Android people jumped on and were crying.
Yeah. But Tweetbot is amazing, and one of the features, actually, I'm going to share one feature that I really love. So I follow 72 people on Twitter, and but I do actually have other people on lists. Like, for example, when I went to New Media Expo, if you were at New Media Expo and you @replied me with #NMX, or you actually @replied me about something related to New Media Expo while we were there, what I was doing, I actually had, and all my lists, by the way, are private because I don't want people to feel left out. So
yeah, me too. Same thing.
I create a private list called NMX 2014, and I actually was adding you to a list. And so every now and then what I can do, Tweetbot actually has the timeline, but you can actually click on timeline, and then you can choose one of your lists, and your list actually becomes your timeline. So I imagine, Scott, that you're probably doing the same thing. You actually pull up your list for Awesome Sauce, and that's really what you see when you load up the Twitter app.
Exactly.
Tweetbot
That's
app.
exactly what pops up when I first load in is that private list. And I always say about the private list, and like if you have to ask if you're on it, then you're not on it. It's like Fight Club. You just don't. We don't talk about Awesome Sauce lists, but that's it. That's what I look at. And that's where my tabs are set up, and I love the tabs on there. I got Awesome Sauce list. I got @replies. I got DMs, and I even got the filters button where I go in and tweak what I'm seeing overall as well.
Yeah, so that first feature that I just definitely want people to know about, Tweetbot allows you to change your timeline so that you're not following everybody that you follow, but you can or for my example, I do follow only 72 people, but occasionally, I get kind of bored with just what those 72 people have said, and I'm like, I want to see what a broader audience, and I can actually specifically look at certain interests like Mac users or podcasters or bloggers or internet marketers or people from this conference or that conference, and it's kind of cool to be able to do that and literally just stay engaged, but with automatically every time you open the app, that's what you're kind of into at that moment. So that's a really cool feature. But Scott, I want you to tell us about the muting ability of Tweetbot.
Oh, it's like Christmas. It's changed Twitter again for me. Where I'm going to want to apologize for my dog. He's an angry individual.
Not a problem.
That the biggest thing. I'll close the door. Hang on. I need to fire him. So the biggest part about muting was you pick the app or the hashtag you don't want to see in your timeline. So if you don't like the Follow Friday anymore, or you don't like scheduling, so you're not going to use something like, let's say, Buffer or Twitter feed, or my favorite, Tweet Old Post, which is the most hilariously named app I've ever seen on there, which you just 100% given up when you're using that. It's you couldn't call it like Toast or Twost or something like that, where it would have been funny. So what you do, you mute the tag or the app or both, and it will now remove all those things from your timeline. So even when you're looking at your lists or your follows or anything else, it will allow you to ignore them. And you can ignore them temporarily. Let's say there's something going on, or there's a hashtag just you usually like, but you don't want to see it for the next week. You can mute it temporarily for a week or something, and I just mute everything forever. So my whole mute list is just I don't ever want to see a Facebook post on Twitter. I don't ever want to see an Instagram post on Twitter. I don't ever want to see a scheduled tweet post. I am there for the real-time conversation, and it's literally just removed so much where now I can see when my actual friends are there versus their scheduled or their sync post. So I know I can talk to them when they're there too.
I like that. And
Love it.
The clients feature, this is something that is amazing. And one of the things that I've done, and I hesitate to say this, but you know what, I'm just going to say it. I had forgotten about the mute features there. I had actually activated a couple things, but when you tweeted the list of your clients that you mute forever, it got me to look in there again. It's like, oh, wow. And something that's been added, and yeah, it's going to be painful for me to say this.
Because we like the people that work there and we like the service to an extent.
And also, I really love the people who abuse it a lot. But I noticed that I can actually mute buffer so that if you buffer a post for later, I can mute it. And dude, that cleaned up. Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to tell you. By the way, there's that and social oomph. Social oomph and buffer killed automation. And it took it out of my timeline. And I did not even realize that those two services were added to the mute abilities. And it had that alone has taken a couple of my really close personal friends that buffer a lot. And
because
now
they've been told by somebody they need a presence. They always need a constant presence. And instead of if you did it and I saw it, I'm like, hey man, great post. And then 6 hours later, you're like, thanks. I'm like, oh, you jerk! You weren't even here when it went out. And that's the problem. I don't want to be at the cocktail party and you send me a postcard. Do you know what I mean? I want to talk to you.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, okay, and you said earlier you don't mind some automation when it makes sense in business and stuff like that. There is some of this stuff that really does make a lot of sense. For example, I mean, I'm not opposed to occasionally linking to something that is self-promotion and is related to marketing. Like, for example, my podcasting A to Z course. I will occasionally publish something out like that. Now, I don't schedule those, but I'll give you a perfect example of when I would schedule something. So, for example, every year I do a Black Friday through Cyber Monday sale. And it's right around, it's obviously Thanksgiving time, and I usually take that time off. And so there are a couple things. Number one, when's the most appropriate time where the most number of people are going to see it? That is something to think about when I'm posting that kind of message. And by the way, I'm going to be with my family, and yeah, I am going to leave social media for a couple days, at least for the most part.
Right.
And I still want to get that message out about my Black Friday through Cyber Monday sale, which, by the way, certainly provides value because I sell thousands of dollars worth of my tutorials as a result.
Right.
So I do schedule those. So and so I say that there are times when I feel like it's appropriate, and I just want to say to other people that while I most of the time really don't like seeing your scheduled tweets, I understand why you do some of what you do.
How do we strike a balance?
You're not going to get me to agree with you. That's for sure. But for me, it's the point of. Here's an example. I saw a tweet from somebody who was selling their event. They were doing an event. This is actually way back in the day. It's 2009, 2010, which is funny because that's way back in the day. And the guy tweets something about an event, and I wrote back, and I asked a question about it, and it was like something like 37 days later, he replied.
Oh, wow.
And I said, wow, that was quite a turnaround time. And Rebecca said, yeah, I was busy. I'm like, what are you, Gandhi? What are you, wandering a continent with no Wi-Fi for 6 weeks? You can't reply? And what happened was it was scheduled. And obviously that's excessive and it's extreme. But here's the problem. If you tweet about a course and I look at it and I'm like, hey, and I actually did this. This is actually how I came into your world.
Yep.
Right. I just, I was asking around. I want to start a podcast 9 years late. And who do I look to? And people, 3 out of 4 people, the average was just you. And I said, okay. And I went and checked out the site. But here's the thing. If I saw your link, went to the site, and I wanted to ask you a question because I was in that frame of mind of purchasing, I just had one question about it. And I already saw your tweet. So your quote, you're there, but you don't reply to me until day after Cyber Monday, then we have a potential loss of sale. So there's your but is there? I don't have a problem selling. I've promoted every book I've got on Twitter. It's your ratio.
And the exciting thing about that is that while my cyber sale, let's just say, for example, is automated, because I didn't want to actually say, hey, I'm going to step away from my family's dinner time, or our holiday movie or whatever, to actually send out this last minute tweet that has to go out today at a certain time. But I will, that afternoon, or, as we're waiting in line for dinner or something like that, I might check, Scott's asked me about this thing. And hey, Scott, yeah, it does include that. Thanks.
Right.
So,
but again, you lose out the real time aspect.
I do lose the real time.
But hey, if you lose one sale of a smaller ticket item purchase, of course that's worth it. We're supposed to be human and allowed to have time with our families.
Exactly.
But if you choose to play the long weekend, because when you do that sale, you're doing that, and 27 million other brands are doing a sale over that weekend.
Yep.
If you choose to jump into that Black Friday sea of madness, then you kind of get what it goes along with that. And I don't think automation is the devil necessarily, even in social media. The problem is I always call it a gateway drug.
Yeah.
That you do it once, then you'll do it twice in a week. And then you realize, what, I could schedule once a day. And then we get to where we are today, which is I never have to be there unless somebody's talking to me. And then I'll just let my virtual assistant handle it. Then I'll just sync 5 platforms across. That's why I never got into Google+. It's just the same content I was getting in everywhere else, but for the 4th time.
Yeah.
And that basically, you've said this, it breeds selfishness. It's about what you can get out of it instead of what you can give.
And if you think back to the early days of Twitter, right, that never would fly. Think back to, look at message board, and I know I'm talking to fellow geeks right now, look at message boards that are still thriving today. If we acted the way we do on Twitter in a message board, what would happen to us? We'd be booted within 10 seconds of that board for automating and posting. Go to I don't care if it's a podcasting industry message board, I don't care if it's a paintball industry or a poker one or a World of Warcraft, name your million boards, you would not last a second. Why? Because they understand it's community and conversation, not scheduling and posts.
Yeah.
What if, think about it this way, what if even in modern terms with like texting, what if Scott or Cliff, if I texted you every, hour on the hour with, hey, check out this cool thing I saw, link. What if I just kept texting you that, Would you block my number?
I would find you.
He would geolocate your butt.
I would go down and you would become my next, my target. Yeah, I would not, but that's exactly the point. We wouldn't do that way because that's just not right. That doesn't make any sense, but people think we can do that, let's say on a conversational platform like Twitter. And I agree with you guys that it makes me sad when I hear it's a news platform, that the entire spine of it, the entire crux of Twitter to me is that real-time conversation.
Yeah. And go ahead, Eric.
So then what do we tell newcomers to Twitter? Like, say somebody comes up to you and says, should I try Twitter? Why should I do Twitter? How do I do Twitter?
Yeah,
we as veterans, what do we tell them?
It's I said this in one of the breakouts when we launched the Vegas 30 Twitter account, and I logged in and we set it up. I logged in and I had 0 followers. I looked around and I tweeted something and nobody said anything. And I looked around like, this is horrible. Is this what it's like for people? And then I'd go reply to 20 different people's tweets and nobody would reply back. I'm like, this is the worst day ever. And I realized that if you want it to work, and I still have, there's a glimmer of hope on the network, that find people who are currently engaging. That, first of all, decide why you want to use Twitter. And if it's just for voyeuristic reasons, just for listening, then that's okay. That's what the majority of people on Twitter do anyways. You just want to follow celebrities or athletes or brands, or you just want to get quick notifications of sales for brands you like, that's fine. But if you want it as an actual conversation platform, then go and look under topics and geographic regions even, and see who is currently engaging, because they're if you go and check, Seth Godin's account, it's just an automation of his blog, you're not going to get anything back from him. So find those engagers and try to find those ones who are also fairly new, because it's a lonely place when you start, and you got to give it time.
Scott, I know that you have to run here, and this will be the last question we ask you, and we'll let you go because I know you have to head out to South Dakota. But here's one of the alumni. This is something he said. He says, in 6 months on Twitter, I can honestly say that it has not added one thing of value to my life. I can't think of one thing that it has done to enrich me or made me any closer to anyone.
Yeah. That, you know what? That's exactly what people who followed him are probably saying too. You know, you get what you give to the platform.
Yep.
Right. That's it. You just get what you give. And the people I see that say it didn't work, I look at their timeline, I look at their streams, and they've done nothing except promote, nothing but push, and nothing but they haven't given a social currency. It's a bank account to me. You have to deposit, you have to invest first. I tweeted 10,000 times before I ever even pitched a thing on Twitter that the people who get nothing out of Twitter have never given to it in the first place.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I would say, and I think you probably would agree with this, is follow some people that you, in your niche, that you want to get closer to. Follow some people that potentially are following you, and spend time each day actually thinking, how can I interact in a relational way in 140 characters or less? And what can I do with that opportunity to enrich the lives of others? And I personally believe that by enriching the lives of others, you and your life is being enriched.
Bingo. Exactly.
Scott, man, I wish we had more time with you, friend, and I have a feeling you'll be back on again some point in the future. Thank you so much for taking the time to join Eric and I.
Gentlemen, the pleasure was all mine. Thanks so much.
All right, Eric, there we go. Everybody else has had the opportunity to re-listen to, or actually to listen for the first time to the conversation you and I had with Scott yesterday. I've already had the opportunity to listen to it over again, but I realize you have not. So
that's all right.
What I've done here for you, and also to highlight to the folks who just listened to it for the very first time, I want to highlight a couple of notes that I took as I was re-listening to it this morning. And one of the things, interestingly enough, I never caught this quote-unquote tagline or phrase that Scott said when he originally said it in the episode. Sometimes I'm thinking about that next question, and I admit that sometimes I'm not the best listener, and that's why I actually like to go back and listen to my own episodes to make sure that I understood and gain the value of all the things that our guests have to say. But one of the things that he was talking about when he talked about his brand, and especially his book on marketing, he goes, yeah, my message is marketing without interrupting people all day.
Yeah. And again, his book on marketing and actually the two follow-ups really follow through on that in terms of just putting content out there that's good in and of itself, and you're not trying so hard to interrupt people. An idea of interruption marketing would be the commercials during television, or the cold calls that you get while you're sitting at dinner, or all the junk flyers that you get in your mailbox.
And amazingly, it's amazing how I know that when he said those words, he was talking about junk mail. He's talking about those calls during dinner time, and he is talking about commercials during our favorite entertainment moments and all of that stuff. But how that phrase completely lines up with what we're talking about, some of these over the last several weeks, the annoyances of people interrupting our real-time conversation platform that we had grown to love so much, and how all these interruptions have kind of grown like weeds and really choked out the original thing that we loved about Twitter.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, and even he was talking about this as far back as 2-3 years ago or more, 2010 I think is what he said, and it's true. Like, do you remember quick tangent, do you remember when we jumped into our Twitter archives a few months back?
Yeah.
When I looked at the early tweets that I did, honestly, that was one of the reasons why I got inspired to start tweeting about bacon again, is because I was doing silly little tweets that were like carefully crafted and almost like one-liner joke type things, and the bacon just came along with it. But that's what inspired that and got me really excited about using Twitter as a medium again.
Yeah, and for me, what really got me, and Scott had mentioned this, he says, listen, when I go to Twitter, I'm there for the real-time conversation, and that's what I loved about Twitter. When I first discovered it back in 2007, I had basically understood that, man, this is an opportunity for me to connect with people, like a group, massive group text messaging. And that's really what it was. I mean, I remember we did not have the smartphones that we have today. And I was using one of those crazy flip phones, and I was getting people's, you were able to follow people and have their text or their tweets sent to your phone as a text message update. And if you wanted to, you could hit reply and actually text an update back. And it was text messaging. But it, of course, had its own platform as well, as we all know. So what we're going to do is, and here's the deal. When we started using Twitter back when we first signed up, Eric Fisher and myself, signed up for the relational focus. We wanted to use it to build relationships with other people. And I want to stress real quickly before we go into our 7 tips or strategies for people to, is it 7 or is it 5? I think it's 5.
I think it's 5, but you're adding 2 more.
Yeah. Are we going to add 2 more? Anyway, the reality is that there are multiple focus or ways to use Twitter. Our way is not the only way. And we're not saying that if you have sat down and intentionally decided to use Twitter as a broadcast platform, we're not saying that you're worse than us or that we're better than you.
Well, let's say this. We've been doing these things and we've seen a change and an uptake or an uptick, I guess is a better word, in our return on our investment in doing it this way. We've both seen more followers. We've seen higher engagement. Heck, we both said, although it's not as important, we've both seen our clout scores go up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When we first started this conversation, I think it was in mid-December, I think my clout score went from 70 to 77. So over the course of that, since that period of time, not that clout score means a whole lot, but I did actually check into clout just to see, I wonder what kind of effect this relational approach has had. And, that, and of course, taking pictures of building your new house also helps on Facebook. So I must actually put that in there. But anyway, let's start off with tip number 1. You want to share that with folks?
Sure. Number 1 is decide who you follow carefully. So find people who are engaging in real time. That's going to be one of those things that's just a huge benefit. So for example, not that we're right out of the gate going to say, hey, follow us, we're engaging, but it's true. Like the majority of my tweets these days start with an @ symbol because I'm replying to somebody else. Yes. So find those people, look at their timeline for people that are interesting and then see if they're replying to people. And then you'll know there's a likelihood you'll get a response from them.
Yeah, and also look for some signs that they're actually engaging in real time about some of the things that are pretty much relational, as far as relationally revealing about themselves. One of the things that a lot of people hated about Twitter, they're like, I'm not going to use Twitter because I really care less about what people are having for lunch. And what I like to do is when I'm looking to decide whether or not I'm going to follow somebody, I will go to their timeline on Twitter, and I will take a look and see, does this person reveal a deeper look into their lives? Do they give me a behind the scenes look into something about who they are as human beings beyond what blog post have they recently read and liked and want to share with you, beyond what product or service they have to sell you, or beyond links to their own content? Do they actually say, hey, this is what I just had for lunch, or hey, I'm excited about going to this, or hey, I'm really scared, I'm experiencing fear and resistance related to these new goals that I'm having. Something that gives you if you look over the last week in their timeline, is this somebody who actually reveals a little bit about themselves personally? That's something that I'm looking for, because that's what I want to use Twitter for. And I'll give you some perfect examples of this. I follow all 5 or 6 of the sharks from the TV show Shark Tank.
Okay.
So Mark Cuban, I know a ton about Mark Cuban and what his personal likes are and things that make him tick, things that he loves, things that he hates. And it's not just all business and links back to him stuff. He really does genuinely share those kind of things. The shark, Damon, John, he shares things that he likes. One of the things that I know about Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, he's a photographer. He loves photography. And also, Robert Hershevek, he's a racer. He loves fast cars and just all of these different things you can learn about these guys. And these, when I choose somebody personally, when I'm choosing somebody who I want to follow, I'm asking myself this, or when I'm following this person, it's like, this is a person that I would intentionally love to get to know on a deeper level. Now, by the way, if I'm not following you, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't want that with you. The reality is I might already have it with you. And I don't need Twitter to actually help me to take that to the next level. So when I'm using Twitter, what the people I quote unquote follow, just by default what follow is on Twitter, those are people that I'd love to get to know on a deeper level, that I'm looking for personally revealing things that help me to understand that person in a deeper way. And the opportunity is that, these people, number one, they don't have to follow me back for me to use Twitter to build a deeper relationship with them. And now, in most cases, I would hope that if I was to tweet them, many of the people that I follow, majority of the people that I follow, would eventually tweet back at me, that they would respond, even if they don't follow me. However, in the case of a celebrity like Mark Cuban and these other guys that I'm talking about on Shark Tank and stuff, the reality is I don't expect those people to respond back to me. But what you'll find is that if you were to send them a message on Twitter and reply to them or respond to something that they had, there is a chance that they might reply to you. Now, will they know who you are compared to the other million people that follow them? Probably not. But here's the thing. If I ever go to a conference and these guys are a keynote or a guest speaker or something like that, and I have that opportunity to go and meet them, and I really wanted to take a relationship to a different level, I could actually take, a personalized gift, something of extreme high value. Let's just say I really wanted to make an impression. I could find out when one of their birthdays are, and knowing what I know about Twitter, I could actually send them, let's just say a $500 or $1,000 gift, and send that to their office and for their birthday. And that's going to stand out with a little note that just says, hey, I don't need anything in return. I just want to say thank you for all you do and for the inspiration that you give. And thank you for being accessible to folks on Twitter and other places. And just sign at cliffravenscraftpodcastanswerman.com and nothing else. That's it. And then all of a sudden, I might meet them at a conference and I'm shaking their hand. It's like, hey, just so you know, I'm the guy who sent you that thing for your birthday. And I just, I don't want anything in return. I just, say, hey, thanks for coming to this conference. And see if they take it to the next level. But I'm sure that you can see that by following somebody on Twitter, getting to know them personally, it really does open up opportunities for things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely one of those great opportunities. In fact, I'm a big fan of the comedian Jim Gaffigan, and I don't do this all the time, but he tweeted a couple things, and I responded to one of the tweets, and he favorited it, and that was cool. It was like, oh, I see your tweet, I see your response. He gets tons of responses, but. And it was almost like a jokey kind of a thing that I wrote back to. So it was like, oh, cool. He said thank you,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was cool. Like it drove a deeper connection to somebody I already really like.
I like it. So number 1, decide who you follow carefully. Tip number 2, start out by making deposits / investing in relationships before you expect anything of value in return, any benefit or return on your investment, if you will. This is something that, I quoted somebody earlier. It's like, listen, I've been using Twitter for 6 months, and we talked about this in our conversation with Scott. It's like, and I just have not had even one single thing of value returned to me. And the reality is what are you doing to give to them? So we've already talked about that. Do you real quickly, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
I think Scott put it wonderfully when he talked about it being like a bank account. You can't withdraw if you don't deposit first. And so again, and I'm going to make that caveat that yes, I know your content, listener, is valuable and it is an investment, and it's, to other people, it changes their lives. Trust me, when they listen to it, consume it, whatever. However, you being you and you being a person and approachable and interacting with them, honestly, sometimes is even more valuable than the content that you produce.
Yeah. Hey, real quickly, Stuart is in our chat room, and he says, your friends on Facebook are the ones you want to throw a drink at. The friends you follow on Twitter are the people you want to have a drink with.
That's a good way of putting it.
Anyway, I have found that I do enjoy Facebook and interacting with those people in a relational way there as well. But what I have noticed is, while Facebook had become my number one social media platform for building relationships and taking them to a deeper level, overtaking Twitter after a very long time, I have realized it's because of this, movement away from Twitter as a social media. And I've noticed that over the last 60 days or so, that I have got to the place where Twitter it hasn't overtaken Facebook yet, but I can see it getting back to what it was in the early times because of these tips that we're sharing with people. So I would say right now, Twitter and Facebook are equally important to me for establishing and building deeper connections with people and having conversations with them. And I like them both equally. Facebook is not actually ahead of Twitter any longer for me. What's number 3 on the list there, Eric?
Number 3, use Tweetbot to mute undesirable content, which we already talked about in the show, but let's rehash that real quick.
Yeah, so you can use Tweetbot. There's the desktop version. There's the iOS version. Sorry for those that are not on iOS or the Mac platform. But it does give the ability to mute things. And specifically, you can mute services. Now, Eric, do you want to actually go through and tell people the list of services that you will never see on Twitter, as far as if they actually use these services to post to Twitter? And I'm pulling up mine right now as well.
Yeah, I'm pulling mine up here. Let's see here. Mute.
All right,
a few that I have. Let's see. I've got Foursquare. That's an obvious one.
A few. Actually, read your entire list.
The entire list. Yeah. Okay. I've got Facebook, because somebody posting to Facebook and then it going to Twitter usually truncates the message, and that's pointless.
Yep.
So Facebook, I've got Foursquare, I've got Paperly.
Yep.
I've got, Tweet Old Post. And I've also got WordPress.com, because if you're auto posting from when you post something on WordPress, it's like you're lazy. Anyway, that's what I have in there right now.
I am actually looking for Tweet Old Post on here, because I did not know that existed until Scott said that, and I'm actually looking for it. Are you sure it's in here?
Which one?
Tweet Old Post. That's a service that's in.
I have it in mine.
Huh. Let me hit cancel. Maybe I already have that. I can't see it.
Yeah, if you go to mute and then you go to edit.
Yeah, and then you hit the plus sign.
And
mute client, and and these are here's tweet button, tweet bot for iOS, tweet bot for Mac, tweet.
By the way, I love that Tweetbot doesn't discriminate. They let you mute even their own client.
Yeah. Twitter Tweet Old Post. I do not have that.
That's interesting.
That is really weird. All right, so here's my list of things that I am muting forever. Argyle Social, have no idea what it is. It's tweeted forever, or muted forever. AWeber Email Marketing is muted forever. Buffer is muted forever. And by the way, that's brand new for me. And since then, it has really helped me with a lot of my friends. I think I'm going to be adding
that to my list.
So if people are, scheduling their tweets for later using Buffer, and a lot of my friends who are consistently sharing quotes and consistently linking to other people's blogs and content on the internet, that they're consistently doing 5-10 of those a day. Most of that was coming from Buffer, and this has completely cleaned that up for me, which is really nice. I also mute Facebook posts that are brought over. Foursquare, Get Glue, Google, if this then that, Paperly, Runkeeper, Social Oomph, Tweet Button. This is where a lot of people are actually clicking the little Twitter share button and posting it out to their Twitter feed. Twitter ads, Twitter feed, and Zeit personalized magazine.
Oh, wow.
So those are and so basically if you were to post to Twitter using any of those services and I was following you, I would never see them when I'm viewing Twitter from Tweetbot, either on my desktop or my iPhone or my iPad. Now I would still see all of those if I log in and see it from the web version, which I do. And now that I actually have the difference between the two, oh my gosh, is it painful to look at Twitter from the web client now.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Muting services, though, are not the only thing that you can tweet or that you can mute in Tweetbot. So, for example, you can also mute keywords, and I'll give you a couple that I have tweeted or that I have muted. If you actually have the word an oldie, which actually was the beginning of an oldie but a goodie, then basically if you put an oldie in your tweet, and then it's an oldie but a goodie, here's a link to an old blog post I wrote. If you have the words an oldie, I'll never see it. If you actually tweet the words from my archive in your tweet, I will never see it. And if you type in an oldie but a goodie, I'll never see it. So those are 3 keywords that I will never see if you tweet. Do you have any keywords muted, Eric?
Keywords. I have in there from the archive.
What's
That's
that?
what I've got.
You've
I've
got
got
from
the archive. Yes.
Right. And
Because
then
that's one I've seen a lot. So.
And then you can actually do hashtags. You can actually mute hashtags. For example, hashtag CBJ, and I think that's Columbus Blue Jackets or whatever. And that came from the day when I was following my good friend Allison, who basically always tweeted everything in real time, like play by play, everything that was going on with the hockey game. So I just, I still wanted to follow her at the time. And so I wanted to get her tweets, but just not when she put in hashtag CBJ. Also, I got rid of hashtag FF for Follow Friday, or hashtag Mixler, or hashtag Steelers, hashtag NFL, hashtag Giants. Can you tell I'm not a sports fan?
No. Yes.
Right. So do you have any hashtags that are muted?
I have. Most of them were temporary.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing. Here's the other thing. So basically, you can mute services, you can mute keywords, you can mute hashtags, you can even mute people. So if there's somebody that's just absolutely annoying you right now on Twitter with what it is that they're consistently posting today, but it's kind of out of character for them, perhaps they're at a conference, for example. And by the way, I could be guilty of that for you. So if you want, you can actually click on that person and mute them individually. Now, here's the deal. With all of these services, keywords, hashtags, and people, when you're muting them, you have the option to either mute for a day, you can mute them for a full week, you can mute them for a month, or you can choose to mute them forever. Now, real quickly, Eric, I'm going to ask you to answer this question for Dave Dufour, who's in our chat room. He says, if you're muting all this stuff, why don't you just stop following people? Eric, you got any response to that?
I'm going to give you an inside tip here. I actually have muted somebody that I'm close to, and I don't like what they do on Twitter. However, they'd be entirely offended if I unfollowed them on Twitter. And I don't, like Scott said, I don't have the heart to do that because it's still a relationship that's good. I'm just removing. I'm being a good roommate, and I'm doing the things on my part that will eliminate me from being annoyed by some of the stuff they've done.
Eric, I promise you, it won't offend me that bad. Go ahead and do it.
All right, I'll unfollow you.
So, okay, that's one reason, and the other reason is here's the deal. I have a friend on. I have 3 friends that I follow that do everything that I don't like to see on Twitter. They consistently nonstop tweet, like probably at least once every 90 minutes. So throughout the day, just it's unbelievable the number of tweets. Number 2, these 3 friends will consistently share links to other people's content, like nonstop. A majority of their tweets are linking to other people's content, or linking to their own content, or promoting a product or service. And it's just like it's very, it's very seldom. It seems like it's very seldom, or at the time it seemed like it was very seldom, that they would ever write anything personal, anything in real time, anything that is that relational component of what I love. But the thing is these three friends actually do post that kind of content. It's just and it's not actually so far and
few and far between.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Thank you.
It
wasn't as few and far between as I thought it was, because what happened was, as soon as I cut out buffer and a couple other keywords and stuff like this, all of a sudden I realized that, wow, this person is sharing stuff relationally and stuff like that. And now that I've cleared out all of their automated stuff, now I'm actually getting that kind of a picture of the kind of content that I desired from Twitter about that friend. And that's why I still follow those three individuals, but mute a lot of stuff that they're posting.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. That was tip number 3. So tip number 4, using Twitter lists. Now, we've talked about this a little bit in the interview, and Scott talked about his awesome sauce list. Eric, are you making use of lists, and what is a list, and how do you get those?
Let's see. A Twitter list is probably one of the most underutilized things on Twitter. In fact, I'm going to my account because I want to look and see what my lists are, which are, let's see, I've actually got one for Twitter accounts of productivity tools that I use. And so that's a list where, I can jump on there and see if they've got any new updates for those things that I use, just kind of check in on them. I've got one that's called Beyond the To-Do List, where it's all the people that I've interviewed for my podcast. They're on there. Let's see, I've got one called Don't Miss that's private. And so that's a very small scaled list. It's got 30 people on it. And that's one where, even though I'm following an outright really small amount of people at this time, that list, the Don't Miss list, is the one where, hey, I haven't been to Twitter in a while. Let me cut straight to, let me drill down my focus on the microscope or something closer so I can see just these people to see if I've missed anything important that they've been talking about. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've got more, but they're way out there. So.
Yeah. And by the way, Twitter lists are available to anyone and everyone on Twitter. You don't have to have Tweetbot to use that. I did talk about how Tweetbot will allow you to actually use a list as your main timeline in the app, which is pretty cool. But Twitter lists, just so you know, can be public, so that people who actually go to your profile on Twitter, they can actually see your lists. They can even subscribe or follow your lists if they want to. Or you can make your lists private. And I had mentioned in the interview with, or the conversation with Scott, that my lists are private because I don't want people to see who I'd put on there, and all of a sudden it's like, I didn't have time to add them to that list when they, mentioned me in a conference or something like that. So I just make it all private because the lists are there to serve me, not to make people feel special that they're on a list somehow, some way. It's kind of like Scott says, if you have to ask yourself if you're on the list, you're not on the list. No,
yes,
it's not like that at all. The fact is that my lists are there to help me. And why I love lists is, as you know, I follow very few people on Twitter as a default follow feature of Twitter. I think at the time that we're recording this, I'm following 72 people. But I actually have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people on a lot of different lists for each of the conferences that I go to, and also different niche fields like internet marketers, life coaches, and all kinds of other categories. And what happens is, and I lightly just passed over it, glazed over it, but I said sometimes I get bored of the people that I follow. And the reason why is because I'm only following 72 people. It's like, man, I just checked Twitter, 45 minutes ago and nothing's changed.
Right.
It's because everything's muted, it's all automated, and these people are it's just the 72 people. So occasionally what I'll do is I'll switch my timeline over to a list, and it's like, oh, this is what's going on with these people. Hey, let me engage with them here. Let me engage with them there. So anyway, that's Twitter list.
Yes.
Tip number 5, don't interrupt people all day with your tweets. What does it mean, Eric, to use the @reply first?
It means that you're responding to something somebody else has tweeted.
Right. So, and here's the thing. If you actually are using any official Twitter platform or any of the third-party ones and you hit reply, the first thing that the software will automatically do is put at their username and then a space, and then you can start tweeting to them. When you do that, this is what happens. That person is the only person who will be able to see your tweet, or the people who both follow you and that person. So let me give you an example. If I say at Eric J. Fisher, hey, great show today. Thanks for all the great conversation and all that you do. I appreciate you very much. If I was to tweet that message at Eric J. Fisher, then what would happen is Eric's going to see that in his timeline. He's going to also see it in his @replies. And also the people who follow me, but they also follow you, Eric, those people will see my tweet to you in their timeline. But anybody who follows me but does not follow you will not see that tweet in their timeline. So what I'm doing is by @replying you and leaving the @Eric J. Fisher as the very first characters in my tweet, that is keeping all the people who don't follow you from being interrupted in the timeline by my tweet. I don't take up another space in their timeline. Now, some people will put a dot in front of the @ symbol, and just by putting a period in front of the @ symbol will actually force the tweet into the timeline of every single Twitter follower you have, and therefore interrupting them.
Yeah, it's one of those touchy things where it's like, well, I want everybody to see that I'm replying to this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to fault somebody for it doing it all the time, but I think it's contextual. Use it sometimes if you have to. If you have to.
Yeah. So maybe how about this? Don't always interrupt people with all. Actually, it goes back to don't interrupt people all day long with your tweets. So it's okay to actually put the period in front of the @reply. Matter of fact, you may actually want to say, dot at Mark Cuban. I totally agree. And then you could put the retweet in there and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of retweets, interrupting people's timelines all day with the stuff that you just want to push out. Of other people's content. Use retweets sparingly.
Yes, I think and even the follow up to this, link to others sparingly. It's great, and Twitter is a great way to not only spread awareness and click-throughs to your own content, but also other people's content that you want people to see. However, you are probably better off using it sparingly for the fact that if all you're doing is doing that, then you're creating a huge amount of noise. And again, you're running the risk of people becoming desensitized to what you're sharing to the point where they tune you out.
Desensitizing is the big key there for me, Eric. I would never mute these different things if they weren't so darn overused. Somebody tweeting, using content and tweeting it out, even every 3 hours. It's like, gosh, that's, you figure something's being scheduled from buffer every 3 hours on top of the stuff that you might be putting in real time and all of the other stuff that that is just a lot of content. And when every day you have 5 pieces of content that you're sharing, the reality is every time I see something that you're sharing, if I haven't muted it, I just overlook it. I never actually, if I see a link in your status update, and I've not unfollowed you, as soon as I see the link, it immediately says skip over and read the next thing. And you're right. But however, if you were to only share links to other people's content sparingly, the reality is like, oh my gosh, this Eric just put a link to somebody's content. If he did that, it must be important because I know that he doesn't do that 5 times a day, every single day.
Right, exactly.
There we go. That's all we have to say about that.
Yes.
All
and I'm going to say, like Scott did, I'm not great at doing this stuff, but I'm trying, and we've seen the results. You and I both have. So
Yeah.
try it out.
Yeah. And then the other thing is really consider the possibility of just thinking about what would Twitter be like if I really focused on real-time engagement. You know, what if nothing that I put out was automated, and what if most of what I put out was just real-time conversation? And and it really reminds me of something you said yesterday in this conversation we had with Scott. And I love this. What if I texted you every 30 minutes or every 90 minutes? What would you do? And I actually like to think of it that way. Don't interrupt me with a text message every 90 minutes. I don't need to hear from you, 5 times in a day. That's tough to say, but the reality is when Twitter started, it started out with text messaging, and that's what I fell in love with it, and that's what I'm trying personally to get back to. And I'm not suggesting anyway, and I don't think you are either, Eric, that everybody goes to this method, but it is an opportunity to build relationally, and these are our tips. Anything else?
No, that's it. Just, again, hit us up on Twitter. We talk to you.
There you go. At Eric J. Fisher, Eric with a K, the letter J, Fisher. And until next time, and by the way, I'm at GSPN. Anyway, until the next time, my friends, we encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Podcast. It's a man.